Hi, hello everyone. It's been a while, really. Well, today in this episode I came back with a new story. How and why people flew, what was the reason and the start, I really wanted to know. And in this episode you too will see the start of it all, till today. I really hope you enjoy today's story, relax and chill, and let's start. From time immemorial, humanity has gazed at the birds with longing and awe. The boundless sky represented freedom, transcendence, and divine power, qualities seemingly beyond mortal reach. Across continents, people have woven elaborate stories, myths, and technological experiments in their quest to join the birds in flight. The enduring dream of flight is more than a wish to defy gravity. It is a metaphor for ambition, spirituality, and the persistent urge to overcome limitations. Across settings as diverse as the ancient Mediterranean, India, and China, flight emerges as a universal cultural motif, one that expresses hope, curiosity, and the willingness to court both wonder and risk. First, let's go through different dreams from different places where some dreamers looked up for the sky, when their imagination takes wing. Let's go. Few myths capture humanity's tragic yearning for flight as vividly as the story of Icarus and Daedalus from Greece. Imprisoned on Crete by King Minos, the master inventor Daedalus engineers wings of feathers and wax for himself and his son, warning Icarus not to fly too close to the sun or sea. Consumed by exhilaration, Icarus ignores the warning, soars too high, and plummets after the sun melts the wax on his wings. This myth is layered with symbolism. Daedalus's craftsmanship exemplifies human ingenuity, while Icarus's fate stands as a caution against hubris and unchecked ambition. In the enchanting sagas of the Middle East, the fantasy of flying carpets reveals another side of humanity's delight in aerial movement. Stories from the Arabian Nights, such as Aladdin and Prince Hussein's magic carpet, describe carpets that whisk travelers to distant lands within moments. These carpets are tools of pleasure, escape, and adventure. Their effortless flight symbolizes the liberation of the spirit, the longing for wonder, and the hope for miraculous journeys. In ancient India, stories of flight took on a mechanical and mystical form via the Vimana, dazzling aerial vehicles described in epic texts like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Vimanas are portrayed as palaces in the sky, weapons of war, and even interdimensional craft ferried by gods and legendary heroes. Those were merely dreams and imaginations when people looked up in the sky seeing how they could possibly fly. Other dreamers actually dreamed about it, hoped for it and worked hard to accomplish it. The Chinese devised the first man-made objects to fly, kites, with origins stretching back to at least 300 BCE, used for military signaling, measuring distances, and forecasting weather. Kites were not just toys, but practical tools, proof that humans could harness wind and aerodynamics for their own ends. Some legends suggest that giant kites carried humans as early as the 6th century CE, foreshadowing attempts at manned flight. The fascination with kites demonstrates an early, hands-on curiosity about wind, lift, and the potential of fabric and frame to defy gravity. The traditions of kite design richly influenced neighboring cultures, underscoring the transcultural spread of flight aspirations. In 9th century Andalusia, the polymath Abbas ibn Firnas became the first individual recorded to attempt powered flight. Using a garment of silk and eagle feathers, he leaped from a hill near Cordoba. Though he managed to glide for a short time, he crashed upon landing, reportedly injuring his back, perhaps the result of lacking a tail to stabilize descent. Furnas's experiment was more than a stunt. It was built upon keen observation of birds and experimentation with gliding forms. His attempt directly inspired later European inventors and is still celebrated as a pioneering feat in the history of aviation. In Renaissance Italy, Leonardo da Vinci brought genius and artistry to the dream of flight. He filled his notebooks with sketches of ornithopters, machines meant to mimic the flapping motion of birds' wings. Baffled by the challenges of lift and propulsion, Leonardo also sketched gliders and contemplated parachutes centuries before their invention. While none of Leonardo's flying machines flew, his meticulous observations of anatomy and air currents laid critical groundwork. His work represents the transition from myth and legend toward the application of science, engineering, and methodical thought to the question of human flight. Centuries of fable and early experimentation slowly gave way to genuine technological progress. While the ancient and medieval attempts often ended in failure or injury, They set the stage for deeper inquiry. By the 18th and 19th centuries, experimenters began to analyze air pressure, lift, and aerodynamics, culminating in balloon flights, gliders, and, eventually, powered airplanes. On November 21, 1783, Paris witnessed a moment as magical as any fairy tale. Jean-François Pilatre de Rogier and François-Laurent d'Arlandes became the first humans to fly freely in a Montgolfier hot air balloon. Gently lifted by a fiery brazier, the hot air balloon carried them from the Château de la Muette across the city, drifting for about 25 minutes over 5 miles before returning safely to Earth. The Montgolfier's hot air design used fire to create a temperature difference, making the air inside the balloon less dense than the surrounding air. Observers, including King Louis XVI and nearby crowds, were awestruck, some fearful of what seemed to be the unraveling of nature's bounds, but most exhilarated by the prospect of an entirely new horizon for human exploration. The success of this flight transformed the Montgolfiers into national heroes and brought the age of balloons into full swing. Pilatre de Rogier's partnership with the Montgolfiers was transformative. Not content merely to be a passenger, Rogier sought to understand and extend balloon flight. He conducted experiments ranging from physiological observations to test flights, constantly improving the safety and reliability of these early craft. His enthusiasm and risk-taking led to another famous flight attempt, a hybrid balloon, part hot air and part hydrogen, which, tragically, caused his death in 1785, yet, Rogier's boldness and curiosity made him one of the first true aeronauts, shaping the way ballooning evolved over the next century. While the Montgolfiers captivated Paris with hot air, another visionary, Jacques Charles, saw promise in a lighter element, hydrogen. Charles, a mathematician and physicist, teamed up with the Robert brothers, who helped him create the first practical hydrogen balloon. Using sheets of rubberized silk, they built a balloon that was not only strong enough to contain the flammable hydrogen but also light enough to lift considerable weight. The first unmanned hydrogen balloon launched on August 27, 1783, from the Champs de Mars in Paris. It soared over 25 kilometers before landing, terrifying local farmers who destroyed it upon arrival, fearing a monster from the sky. Just days after the Montgolfiers' first manned ascent, Charles himself and collaborator Nicholas Louis Robert achieved the world's first manned hydrogen balloon flight on December 1, 1783. Their journey lasted 2 hours and covered over 36 kilometers, showcasing hydrogen's clear advantages in altitude and endurance over hot air designs. Charles's experiments quickly demonstrated that hydrogen balloons could stay aloft longer and travel further than their hot air counterparts. His technical improvements, valves for controlling gas, a more robust envelope, and mechanisms for releasing ballast, became foundational for the future of scientific ballooning. No invention of the late 18th century better captured the imagination than flight. For scientists, balloons unlocked the mystery of the upper atmosphere. Meteorologists measured temperatures, air currents, and pressure at altitudes never before reached. For the public, the sight of a balloon, ever so serene, gliding endlessly above, was proof that human curiosity could overcome the bounds of Earth and nature. Meanwhile, rulers and militaries eyed balloons for communication and observation. By the 1790s, France's Aristires used hydrogen balloons as military lookout posts, observing enemy troop movements at the Battle of Fleurus. Although early balloons were frail and difficult to control, their psychological and practical value was undeniable. At the end of the 19th century, a former German cavalry officer and visionary, Ferdinand von Zeppelin, redefined the possibility of human flight. Zeppelin dedicated decades to constructing massive, steerable, and robust airships. His breakthrough was the rigid, internally framed Zeppelin, first flown in 1900, a marvel almost 128 meters long, combining multiple hydrogen gas cells with a metal framework and external propeller engines. These airships were not mere scientific curiosities. They quickly found uses in long-distance travel, military operations, and even luxurious passenger flights. Zeppelins crossed entire continents, crossing the Atlantic in the 1920s and 1930s and bringing the dream of regular airborne travel to life. The rigid structure, divided into many separate gas cells, improved both capacity and safety. If a single cell leaked, the rest could keep the ship afloat. Zeppelin's creations, especially the LZ-127 Graf Zeppelin and the doomed Hindenburg, became household names, while the Hindenburg disaster of 1937 spelled the decline of the hydrogen airship era. Zeppelins had demonstrated that lighter-than-air travel on a grand scale was not only possible, but could be safe, reliable, and even luxurious. The inaugural balloon flights did more than push technological boundaries, they transformed humanity's ambitions and worldview, embodying Enlightenment ideals. Balloons bridged earthbound existence and the open sky, catalyzing advances in meteorology, atmospheric chemistry, and cartography. The craze of balloonimania in late 18th century Europe reshaped fashion, media, and popular culture. Today's scientific research, weather monitoring, and recreational ballooning trace their roots back to those pioneering ascents. Let's take a quick look to how flight became possible, and the pioneers who made it happen. For an object to fly, like an airplane or a bird, there are four main forces all acting at the same time. These forces are lift, weight, thrust, and drag. Think of them as invisible pushes and pulls that decide whether something can take off, stay in the air, and land safely. Lift is the upward force that makes things rise. Air passing over and under the wings creates this force, helping planes get off the ground. Weight is the force of gravity pulling everything down toward the earth. All flying things need enough lift to rise up against this weight. Thrust is the push that moves an airplane forward. Engines or propellers create thrust. Drag is the resistance or air friction that tries to slow the airplane down as it moves forward. When lift is greater than weight, the plane goes up. When thrust is greater than drag, the plane moves forward. All four forces must be balanced or controlled to make flight smooth and safe. Sir George Cayley was an inventor from England in the early 1800s who was called the father of aviation. He was the first person to break down the problem of flying into the key forces: lift, drag, and thrust. Before Cayley, people thought flying was just about flapping wings. Cayley discovered that it's more about balancing forces. He made small models and even built a full-sized glider that carried a human off the ground. Cayley showed that wings provide lift, engines provide thrust, and the plane's shape helps reduce drag. His big idea was, keep the parts that lift and the parts that move, propel, the airplane separate. This simple idea helped later inventors build real flying machines that worked better and were easier to control. Otto Lilienthal was a German engineer who lived in the late 1800s. He was the first person to build gliders that a person could fly safely and repeatably. Lilienthal studied how birds used their wings for balance and control, and he tried to copy those ideas. He jumped from hills and glided through the air over 2,000 times. Lilienthal proved that steady, controlled flight was possible for a person. He also kept careful notes and published what he learned. His work inspired many later inventors, including the Wright brothers, to believe human flight was possible if they kept experimenting with gliders. Wilbur and Orville Wright were two brothers from the United States who owned a bicycle shop. They learned from Otto Lilienthal and built even better gliders, but their big achievement came in 1903. The Wright brothers built and flew the world's first powered, controlled airplane at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina on December 17, 1903. Their airplane, called the Wright Flyer, had an engine for thrust and special controls that let the pilot steer in all directions. What made them succeed was, added powerful engines for thrust, used wing designs that created enough lift, made their airplane easy to steer and control with all the right surfaces, like those ailerons, rudder, and elevator, and learned how to balance all four forces of flight better than anyone before. This first flight only lasted 12 seconds and went 120 feet, but it changed the world. It showed that powered, controlled, human flight was possible for the first time. But it was war that turned the sky into a battlefield, and a laboratory, accelerating aviation like never before. Let's see, how did war accelerate aviation? During World War I, airplanes were used in battle for the first time. At the beginning, planes were mostly used to watch the enemy from above, but soon, pilots started fighting each other in the sky. These fights were called dogfights. Pilots tried to shoot each other down using machine guns fixed to their planes. Dogfights made airplane makers build planes that were easier to control, faster, and with stronger engines. The most common planes in World War I were called biplanes. They had two sets of wings, one above the other. This design made the planes more stable and able to turn quickly, which was very important in dogfights. Biplanes marked a big step in airplane design. Airplanes were also used to take pictures and spy on the enemy. This was called aerial reconnaissance. Pilots and observers in planes flew over enemy lines and took photos so soldiers on the ground knew where to attack. This made airplanes even more important in war. After World War I, more people believed in airplanes. Amelia Earhart was one of the first famous pilots who proved flying could be safe and exciting. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Earhart inspired many people, including women, to become pilots, even though she was not in a war. Her brave flights showed the world what airplanes could do. World War II pushed aircraft technology even further. Airplanes became much faster, could fly higher, and could carry heavier loads. Bombers were large planes designed to drop bombs on enemy targets far away. They could fly long distances and carry heavy bombs. Some bombers, like the B-17 Flying Fortress and the Lancaster, were famous for their important roles in the war. Fighter planes also improved. They flew faster and had more weapons, making air battles more intense. Better engines, newer shapes, and strong materials helped these planes win battles in the sky. During World War II, groups of pilots made history beyond technology by breaking social barriers. The Tuskegee Airmen, they were the first black military pilots in the United States. They flew many successful missions and showed that people of all colors could be skilled and brave pilots. Their actions helped change attitudes about race in America and inspired future generations. And the Night Witches, they were female pilots from the Soviet Union. They flew old, slow planes at night to bomb German positions. Even without modern technology, their daring and teamwork made them very successful and feared by the enemy. These women showed that skill and courage in the air wasn't just for men. At the end of World War II, two inventors made airplanes even better. Frank Whittle, in Britain, and Hans von Ohain, in Germany, each built the first working jet engines. Jet engines used new technology to push planes much faster than propellers ever could. This led to jets that could fly higher, faster, and longer. The first jets were used only at the end of the war, but their invention changed flying forever. In the early days of flying, airplanes were slow, noisy, and only a few people could afford to ride in them. A big change came with Pan American World Airways, also known as Pan Am. Pan Am was founded in 1927 and quickly became famous for making air travel popular and helping to connect cities around the world. Pan Am started with small flying boats and mail routes in Central and South America, but it kept expanding. Eventually, it became the first airline to offer regular flights between the United States and countries in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. Pan Am was a leader in the airline world, showing people that flying could bring the world together. Pan Am's blue globe logo became a symbol of worldwide airline travel. A real turning point came with the Boeing 707. This was one of the first big passenger jets. It could carry more than 150 people over long distances at close to 600 miles per hour. Pan Am was the first airline to buy and fly the Boeing 707. Beginning in 1958, suddenly, trips across the Atlantic, like New York to London, only took about 7 hours. Before the 707, that trip could take more than twice as long and might need several stops. The introduction of the Boeing 707 made flying possible for many more people. Tickets started to get cheaper, and airlines offered more choices of where to go and when to fly. Pan Am's first 707 flights were so popular that other airlines quickly bought similar jets to compete. By the 1960s, jets like the 707 became a common sight at airports, and the number of people flying grew very quickly. Another big step came in 1976, when the Concorde began flying passengers faster than the speed of sound. Concorde was made by British and French companies and could cross the Atlantic in about 3 hours, half the time of regular jets. It was the first and only jet made for passengers to fly that fast. Concorde was famous for its pointed nose and sleek wings. But Concorde tickets were very expensive, and it could only carry about 100 passengers. It was mostly used by business people and famous stars. While it did not make flying cheaper for everyone, Concorde showed that technology could push the limits of speed and make the world feel even smaller. As air travel became more popular, airports changed too. Airports grew from simple buildings into giant centers with shops, restaurants, lounges, and art. Airports became places where people from all over the world mix and meet. New airports were built near big cities, and old airports added longer runways and bigger terminals to handle jet planes like the Boeing 707. Some airports became well known for their design and for offering special services for travelers. For many people, going to the airport became part of the excitement of travel. Jets and new airports opened up many routes and cut ticket prices, letting millions fly for work, study, or to visit family. This sparked a tourism boom that filled hotels, restaurants, and shops, fueling local economies. Airlines then improved comfort and safety with better meals, in-seat entertainment, quieter cabins, and frequent flyer lounges. Finally, international open skies agreements broke route restrictions, boosted competition, and drove prices down, making air travel truly accessible. Worldwide. Humanity's journey from the skies to the stars is a story of pushing past limits. Aviation evolved into spaceflight through a series of technological advancements and theoretical developments that connected the principles of flight within Earth's atmosphere to those of traveling beyond it. The theoretical groundwork for space travel was significantly influenced by Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, a Russian scientist known as the father of astronautics. In 1903, he proposed the rocket equation, which outlined how a rocket's velocity depends on the speed of exhaust gases and the mass ratio of the rocket. His ideas were crucial in understanding how rockets could achieve the velocities needed to escape Earth's gravity, laying the groundwork for modern rocketry and space exploration. Following Tsiolkovsky, American pioneer Robert H. Goddard made substantial contributions by successfully launching the world's first liquid-fueled rocket in 1926. His research into rocket propulsion demonstrated its potential for both atmospheric flight and, eventually, space travel. German engineer Wernher von Braun emerged during World War II with his work on the V-2 rocket and continued to develop rockets for NASA, crucially shaping U.S. space capabilities post-war. The fundamental difference between flying and orbiting centers on the relationship with Earth's gravitational field. Aviation involves flying within Earth's atmosphere to achieve lift through aerodynamic principles without the need to reach escape velocity. In contrast, orbiting is the state where a spacecraft achieves sufficient horizontal velocity to maintain a stable path around Earth while balancing gravitational pull and inertial force. This shift from flying to orbital mechanics became apparent during the space race, particularly with the launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union in 1957, the first artificial satellite to successfully enter Earth's orbit. This monumental achievement marked the beginning of modern space exploration. The importance of achieving orbit was further exemplified by Yuri Gagarin's historic flight in 1961, becoming the first human to travel beyond Earth's atmosphere and circle the planet. The exploration of space has been defined by several key milestones that not only mark humanity's advancements in technology but also highlight the essential role of international collaboration. The Apollo program, highlighted by the Apollo 11 mission in 1969, represented a pinnacle of human spaceflight when astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the Moon. With the subsequent development of the Space Shuttle, designed for both launch and re-entry, and the establishment of the International Space Station, ISS, in 1998, collaboration between nations became a hallmark of space exploration efforts. The Space Shuttle program enabled reusable spacecraft, reducing costs and allowing for more frequent missions to support the ISS. The ISS itself is a manifestation of international collaboration, involving multiple space agencies, including NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, JAXA, and CSA, working collectively towards scientific research and technology development in low Earth orbit. Today's advancements in aviation encompass several significant frontiers, which are changing the landscape of flight in various ways. The incorporation of drones and AI pilots is reshaping military and commercial aviation. Unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, are being deployed in military operations for tasks such as surveillance and targeted strikes. In commercial sectors, drone technology is actively improving delivery services, thereby enhancing logistics efficiency. Sustainability efforts in the aviation industry are also gaining momentum through the development of electric and hydrogen-powered aircraft. Electric vertical takeoff and landing, eVTOL, planes offer a cleaner alternative to traditional fossil fuel-powered flights, significantly reducing emissions and noise pollution. Hydrogen-powered aircraft have demonstrated impressive range capabilities, completing long flights while only producing water as a byproduct, validating its viability as a sustainable aviation fuel. Have you ever watched those science fiction movies and wished to have your own personal ship to travel in space? Or with your friends? Well, it's not that far. The realm of private spaceflight is evolving rapidly, spearheaded by companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic. These companies are making space travel accessible to private citizens and researchers through commercial ventures. SpaceX is particularly noted for its reusable rocket technology that has revolutionized space transportation, while Blue Origin focuses on suborbital flights for tourism, and Virgin Galactic caters to those seeking leisure trips into space. And this is the most thing I personally ever wanted. Can't wait for this to happen, as soon as possible, please. Flying taxis and vertical takeoff and landing, VTOL, technologies are set to redefine urban mobility. With the potential to alleviate urban congestion, these innovative systems are being developed for operational debut shortly. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, has recognized eVTOLs as a new category of aircraft, paving the way for their integration into urban air mobility networks. Just look at this. Isn't this what every gamer, science fiction fan want? So nice. And now, my dearest, this journey has come to an end, and of course the exploration of aerospace engineering continues to push the boundaries of what is possible in aviation and space travel, exploring the extent of human capabilities and technological innovations. I really hope you enjoyed our journey. If you ever reach to this point, drop a comment of what journey you want to take next. Take good care of yourselves. Hope to see you next time.